It's the COD, episode 12.
Episode 12
Whoop, dirty dozen.
with your co-hosts Ryan and Paul.
Paul and Ryan, King's Legacy.
Yes, sir. Today we are memorializing Chadwick Boseman. May he rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
If you didn't know, he had passed recently from colon cancer, something that not a lot of people had known about. But I guess if you were paying attention, you could have noticed the weight loss. I thought it was for a role. I don't know if you guys had noticed his weight loss or if you thought anything was going on, but I think it caught us all off guard.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here on this episode, we have our, writer, editor, blogger, Matt Brassil joining us to give us the rundown of Chadwick and what he meant to cinema, what he meant to the Marvel Universe, and man, just to pay a tribute to him in general.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I was actually on set. I'm working on season 4 of Fargo, trying to get it done after 5.5 months shutdown from the pandemic. And I was out doing it overnight and just looked on my phone, and it was just one of those things where just everyone seemed like they were on their phone after a certain point in the evening, and it was just it was the news hitting everybody, and did you hear this, whatever. And it just, like you said, it came out of nowhere. I've been reading a lot of the tributes and this and that, and across the board, the idea seemed that no one knew that this was happening.
Yeah.
Not Ryan Coogler, not Kevin Feige at Marvel. No one had any idea. And that's a crazy thing, because the amount of things that he had to do physically, working 14-hour days on set, is difficult for anybody. When you're the lead actor, when you're in almost every shot of something,
right, that's
physically taxing. No level of star pampering that you can do can really curb that. It takes a perseverance, it takes a strength. And from what everyone was saying over the past week, it just seemed like he never let his tiredness show. He never let anything get him down. And that's incredible strength that I feel like now we're going to go back and watch all these films of his, and it's going to have this new layer, because we know that this was always going on for him. Especially, his second to last role in The Five Bloods is just, it was already something where he was kind of this ethereal ghost kind of hanging over stuff. And that's just going to mean something completely different now. And, even in Black Panther, there's kind of the death and rebirth that happens there. I was trying to kind of think about certain correlations that he had to other artists. And the one that kind of kept coming back to me was, I was thinking about David Bowie a lot.
Okay.
And the Black Star album that he put out, where we didn't know that he had cancer either. And it died, and this album dropped, and it was all about that. It was all about what he was dealing with, coming to terms with being towards the end. And, that was an amazing piece of art, Black Star was. And I feel like Chadwick had a very similar approach to his dealing with his illness, and how he put out his energy into the world, and was a positive, strong light. And I think that the amount of awareness that's been raised this past week over colon cancer is something that kind of is really often missed early in men. And that's just, it's just a terrible thing. But I it's crazy.
And I think that, like you said, nobody knew he had it, right? So he pushed forward, and if you don't know about Chadwick Boseman, he went to Howard University. He also went to the British American Drama Academy, and then Digital Film Academy. So he put a good chunk of his life into acting and into theater as a whole, and not only you know, we talk about Black Panther, and Black Panther was one of those things that, you know, it impacted everybody because it was part of the Marvel world, and he played it so well, and you know, and just the way that he stepped into the role and owned it, and made everybody love Black Panther. But man, 42. Let's talk about that, man. Jackie Robinson, right? Really?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's crazy the run that he had, because we're talking about a run of like 3 huge, you know, Black figures between Jackie Robinson, James Brown, and Thurgood Marshall. I mean,
and James Brown. Yeah.
that is a huge, you know, weight to carry. And the thing is, you mentioned all of that schooling, all of that time put into acting. Like, the career didn't quite hit for Chadwick until his, you know, mid 30s, and that's late for actors. You know, he was like one of those guys who did, you know, an episode of Fringe and CSI, and just like he spent his 20s just really like bumming around in New York, and I feel like that kind of gave him a strength, because he really explored himself and really kind of got a lot of experience. And now that he, you know that really brought a knowledge and I keep coming back to strength. Strength keeps feeling like the word. I feel like that's something that he just embodied always, and I think he brought it to all those figures. And you know, that's you really can't ask for better. You know, I saw comparisons to like Robert Redford in terms of acting. I think, you know, I absolutely think that hits for sure. Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting. His post-schooling, as Paul mentioned, after Howard University, he couldn't actually afford, I think, to go to the academy. And his teacher had reached out and I think emailed Denzel Washington and a few other actors. Mm-hmm. And they had actually given him a full ride. They paid his way through the academy and, you know, the schooling past Howard University. So, you know, also that, I guess that speaks to the actor that he was. If you look at Denzel Washington's career and how many prominent Black figures that he portrayed in film, mm-hmm. and then you see Chadwick Boseman as well, and the figures that he portrayed, and it's more so like their careers almost mirrored each other. Like Chadwick was just getting started, as you were saying. He was just getting these big roles. I mean, I think he was diagnosed at 39. So a lot of his big movies had come out in that 4 or 5 year stretch. Mm-hmm. And, you know, just seeing the roles that he went for and portrayed on film, there was some purpose behind his career. There was something that he was going for. There was something that he wanted, that there was an image that he knew he wanted to portray. Yeah. I think he had even mentioned like how it was very important for, I mean, not only young Black children, but young children in general, to see these characters portrayed on the big screen. Because, I mean, I guess somebody else would have if he didn't, but the fact that, you know, let me really take this script and let me make sure I see it through. Mm-hmm. You know, these stories need to be told. You know, children need to see these stories, see positive figures. Exactly. So that was something that I really admired after hearing that story of Denzel Washington really kind of putting his stamp on him before he was even in those big films.
Right. Yeah. The thing that really got me was Coogler's tribute to him. I don't know if you guys got a chance to read that, but just the intentionality between Coogler kind of inherited him as his star because Marvel had already cast him for Civil War, and the decision to use John Connie's original language as the Wakandan language, and not choosing to westernize his accent and any of that. There was always intentionality in every little thing that he did. And, you know, that made for an amazing pairing in Coogler and Boseman, that they were able to work together and make this a very purposeful film that, quite frankly, I think even 2 years later, we take for granted. Mm-hmm. I think that the fact that it got like, you know, I'm one of those Oscar people. I care about the Oscars.
Right.
When it hits, it's great. When it's bad, I feel like I worry about the history of cinema in general. And unfortunately, that year, there's a lot of good with the bad, because on the one end, it was an amazing thing that Black Panther got nominated for Best Picture. But on the flip side, you know, Green Book won, which was an unfortunate thing that no one really is already aging poorly, and aged the second it happened. But, you know, there was all these lot of great things along the lines in that run, including the SAG Award nominations, the entire ensemble one. And there was kind of almost a moment there where a lot of people thought there was an energy that maybe Black Panther had the opportunity to go to the distance on that. But the other flip side of the whole Academy thing is that posterity tells us what matters. And
exactly.
no one's going to, the lack of it not winning Best Picture is not going to take away from the fact that Black Panther is going to mean a lot to a lot of people for a long time. But now with this extra layer of knowing that Chadwick is gone, that a sequel is, you know, going to be different. We can kind of get into that whenever you guys want in terms of what I think that's going to happen there. But it's the big machine, the big Marvel machine makes you feel like everything's always going to be fine. And it's all going to, we're always going to have all these things. No one's going to quit. No one's going to pass away. But, you know, tomorrow's not guaranteed. And I think that was the big thing that a lot of people got reminded of and always get reminded of when this sort of thing happens.
Yeah. And it's funny, I kind of want to tap into what you said, Matt. And I don't want to get off the subject of Chadwick, but we talk about these iconic roles that he played, right? Just like Ryan mentioned, getting back by a guy like Denzel, right, when he was early in his career. And then you mentioned, like, he didn't get an award for that. You know, that kind of begs the question, doesn't it? It's like, these are, like you said, these are iconic, like I don't know if another movie did as well as Black Panther did that year, and they still didn't give him the accolades or, you know, give him the credit that he deserves.
No, it's a stigma around superhero movies, you know?
Yeah.
It's like they look at it as not serious or something like that.
Yeah, but I could also argue the flip side of, like, you know, biopics are almost a shoo-in at the Academy, and neither 42 nor Get On Up were really in that conversation.
Right.
You know, even sometimes those sort of movies, you know, they don't get it's kind of like just a best actor nomination, and that's kind of it. And even that, I'm just, you know, I could go back and look at all the lists, and at the end of the day, it's going to be it's the same 10, 15 guys, and it's
right.
You know, Rami Malek lip singing and you know, not even doing the actual songs, and that just drives me up the wall. Especially when you see something as genuine and fully embodied as something like when he did with James Brown. That was
right.
I was watching clips of that, and just the energy that he brought to it. And he's never been a one gear. He was never a one gear guy. He was always, you know, fluid and adjustable. And, you know, you don't always get that. And I think that that's something that the Marvel studios and everything really wanted a lot of their cast. Cause I mean, if you look at Chris Evans, he's just as comedic as he is self-serious, and that's kind of how it is with all of those guys. And Chadwick fit in very well with that group, and could kind of adjust to each scene, and it never felt like he was like sticking out as a self-serious sore thumb. And, you know, there's a lot of levity, and especially in Black Panther with him and, you know, Suri and Letitia White just knocks out that performance, and they have a really great chemistry. It's just, you know, I actually haven't had a chance to go back and rewatch Black Panther since this all happened. Yeah. I'm one of those people who usually kind of gives it a little bit more time, because I think I watched Mrs. Doubtfire like right after Robin Williams passed away, and it was just
exactly.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Got to give it some time. One thing you had mentioned earlier that I wanted to touch on was Da 5 Bloods. I know right when I got the news, I had mentioned to somebody that Chadwick's character in that movie takes on a whole new meaning now. like you said, in the movie, he's already passed away, so he's kind of like this ghostly figure. But everything that his, I guess, how would you say, what, army friends or his comrades, all,
yeah.
all of his everything that his comrades would look back on. It was always this advice that Chadwick was giving them, stay true, keep your integrity. I guess stay focused. If you have to kill, do it for the right things.
Right.
When he was talking about the respect that they would not get back home after the war, he said, don't let that bog you down. You still have to not only, fight for your country, but also for racial justice, things like that. He was keeping them in line even after he passed. And, seeing his roles and his purpose outside of the Five Blood, just Chadwick himself, it kind of seems like that's his message. That was his message. He seemed like he was playing himself into Five Bloods now that you go and look back at that. And
No, absolutely. And I mean,
man,
the Five Bloods is one of
his career kind of with a Spike Lee joint as a black actor too.
Yeah, and it's a wild film in terms of it's just brimming with so much knowledge, and there was so much that I got out of that film that, especially in this time, and it ended up being this thing where it kind of really hit. I think it was within a couple weeks of after George Floyd and all of that. That I mean, to say that Spike Lee's films always feel just so of the time and relevant is kind of an understatement that we've at this point made very, very clear. But yeah, I mean, that was one of those great collaborations that I'm so glad that we got that because it just seemed like Chadwick really wanted to not just be the Marvel guy, not just be the big movie guy, but he was also capable of taking on these bigger, harder roles. And I think Delroy Lindo's performance in The Five Bloods, I feel like, is so informed by Chadwick's energy.
Yeah.
And Delroy Lindo is one of those guys who you may not know his name, but you've seen at least 20 movies he's been in.
Exactly.
And he's always brings his A game. He's always fantastic. Even if it's something off the wall like Congo, he's just absolutely giving it 100. And still the best performance I've seen this year.
Congo was classic. Come on.
Congo is classic, but it is gorillas and lasers. But just that energy of being able to see, I keep coming back to it, Chadwick's strength and applying it to his own performance. And without that, I don't think we have the same movie there for The Five Bloods. I don't think at all.
Yeah. So what direction do you think the Marvel universe is going to go in? Because you mentioned it earlier.
So, I mean, unlike, past situations where it's like, oh, we're going to have to just cast someone else, whatever. I mean, it's all there to me. It's Letitia Wright taking the mantle. In the comics side of things, there was a run of a Suri solo comic in which Black Panther was missing on a mission in space.
Right.
And so she took up the mantle of Black Panther, and that's actually written by Nnedi Okorafor, who is actually from Olympia Fields. Small world.
Shout out.
Shout out Illinois.
Yeah, shout out Illinois. Suburban Illinois. Went to University of Chicago, where our buddy Diz works.
Nice.
And
yeah,
I think that they're probably going to play it, that whole situation, literal. I think that his shadow will be ever present in Black Panther 2 or whatever it's going to be. Obviously, that movie's been being written for a while, and Coogler talked about again in his tribute about how he was writing words for Chadwick that we'll never get to see.
Right.
And I think that he'll have to pivot, but it's going to be a tasteful thing. I think I don't think this is going to kind of be, oh, we're going to get in our new Black Panther and it's all going to be fine and rosy. I think it's gonna have a new weight to it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like Coogler really always captures very well in his films to begin with. That kind of energy of, you know, the shadows of our past and of our actions, and that's in Fruitvale Station, that's in Creed, it's in all of his films. So that's where I see it going. I definitely would argue that probably initially the plan for this next phase of Marvel was going to involve Chadwick at the center, and Chadwick kind of being the main person, with everyone else kind of taking their new, obviously Iron Man no longer in the picture, Steve Rogers essentially not in the picture anymore.
Right.
We were kind of making way for a new generation of characters, and it seemed like Black Panther was going to be the center of that. But not to say that Letitia Wright couldn't also be the center of it, because obviously that character just exudes confidence and knowledge, and she's almost a Tony Stark in her own right. Not almost, I should say. She's actually smarter than Tony Stark, probably. Yeah. So that's a transition that I think will likely happen, if I had to guess.
Do you think Michael B. Jordan makes a return, or Killmonger returns? Because I did hear that I think he had signed on, or that they at least had him sign on or sign some contract for Black Panther too. I don't know what capacity his character would return, but I think he will be on set, or at least that was reported.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about that, but honestly, I always say there's always open room for flashbacks. I don't know about you guys, but like, I was absolutely thrown in Endgame when like Robert Redford just showed up again. I was like, did they really get him for an extra day? And same with Natalie Portman. Like, anytime anyone showed up who had like a major role in one of those solo movies, I was just always super blown away that they came back just for what felt like maybe a half an hour of work, which is kind of incredible, and really shows again the power of the Marvel franchise and how well that they could. It seems like everyone has enjoyed working in that space, and especially the one thing that I've always been really excited about with this next phase post Endgame has always been, now we're getting into the weird stuff,
right?
And now we're gonna take swings, and honestly, that's always been when really any studio has excelled. I mean, Marvel happened when they didn't have the X-Men, when they didn't have Spider-Man, and they took someone who was not good and Iron Man was not a big deal prior to 2008, and they made him the center of that universe. And now we're kind of moving into, we're going to take swings. We have the ability to, why not? And that's usually when things go better. Not to say anything has ever gone bad, but like, they've worked themselves out of issues when they've taken swings, whether it's something like Thor Ragnarok, where you're going to take the self-seriousness out of Thor and kind of play into how weird it would be to be this old and be this strange and to have so much history, just make you a little bit more squirrely. And now that's how we think of that character. We don't even think of that character as
strong, powerful Thor. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't think about it as like this arc of going from being a brat to being noble, which is really what the first movie of Thor is about. And even Avengers is about that. And they kind of abandoned that, but it ended up benefiting the character in the long run. And now it's like the most, Love and Thunder is probably the second or third most anticipated movie in the next 10 years coming up.
Exactly. And what's so crazy? Endgame was so emotional, just in general, right? Anytime I watch Endgame, it's like, oh man. But now, with this reality of Chadwick being gone, it's like it adds that much more kind of like fuel to the emotional fire.
Totally. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's those those Instagram stories where they'll show the scene and then there'll be the script scrolling underneath it. And it did not look as though it was originally written that the first person that we see coming through was T'Challa. It looked like it was either it was we see Falcon right away or something like that.
Yeah, but nobody noticed them. Everybody noticed T'Challa coming through.
Yeah, and now it's a whole different thing where it's like that moment is going to just completely be changed as he's gone and he comes back, and it just guts you because you don't get that in life. Frankly, you don't get that in life. You don't get that resurrection. But yeah, no, next time I watch any of these movies, I'm just going to be a freaking mess. So I just accept that.
Watch it on a Saturday night in a dark room with a real thinking.
Exactly.
Do you know anything about his what they're saying is going to be his final movie that's in post-production right now? Maria's Black Bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I just the kind of the synopsis and this and that. I mean, obviously it was completed prior to COVID and all that sort of stuff. The whole Netflix pipeline has been so backlogged that they really didn't have any struggles whatsoever with anything this year, which has kind of been a strange disparity for someone like me who works on set and knows what that takes and knows how much ahead of time that works. But I understand that also the public doesn't realize that that's how it is.
Right.
And so there's almost this separation where you think that, oh, well, people are just out still making movies like right now, which is not really the case. I mean, we really only got up and running last month or so, and it's really only been the big ticket stuff. And then the stuff that's been non-union or they don't have to necessarily follow certain COVID protocols, that stuff's had issues. There was an assistant director who passed away after getting COVID, who worked on a commercial out in LA. That sort of stuff is, when there's not the amount of safety that they need for all of that and those big productions, it's unfortunately things happen. So it's definitely another movie that's in that pipeline is finished way in advance and they had time to do edits and all that. I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's got a great cast and it should be another great turn in a short, what feels like just too short of a career.
Right.
And again, a career that we just said just was getting going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know it's well, I just pulled up a little synopsis. It's a play, a 1982 play that's based in Chicago or based in 1920 Chicago. So that's cool for us. But again, it's a movie that deals with race, art, religion, and I guess it focuses on the exploitation of Black recording artists by white producers or the industry as a whole. So, as we were saying, he kind of left us off with, I guess we'll see whenever this movie does release, but he kind of left us off with another thing to kind of ponder, like another really kind of serious movie to ponder. So, I mean, if that was his signing off, that's a powerful, signing off.
Absolutely.
So, film that's relevant, to what's going on right now socially. Get us thinking about things, get us looking at things, from a different perspective. Seeing how really, and it's funny that it's not talked about a lot, right? Because all of these roles that Chadwick played, right, that shows, like, without a doubt, how Black culture, Black sports, Black acting, Black music has affected American culture. And it's funny that you say that, like, he got into his career just started going, but then he realized at some point, like, man, you know what, this is the angle that I want to take, And man, I think that losing a guy like that is it's heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
Heartbreaking. So shoot, I think that like you said, the Marvel Universe will adjust. But if they ever put somebody in Black Panther shoes, other than what the story dictates when he gets lost in space, like they'll be doing an injustice. It's just it's kind of like what's the actor's name who played the Joker before he passed away?
Heath Ledger.
Heath, yeah.
Yeah, and he like Heath, right? And that's my guy, Knight's Tale. I just watched that the other night. Just like,
An absolutely perfect movie, like no flaws.
no flaws.
No flaws.
And it's like, you look at when he played that position, like they couldn't stick to that same storyline. You know what I mean? Like nobody can step into that Joker's shoes.
Yeah, there was definitely an energy after that where it felt as though Nolan had his Dark Knight Rises plan, and it involved him, and he had to adjust. I still remember there was like a series of Gotham City headlines, that they put out. One of them was like, all of criminals of Gotham escape except the Joker. Because just to explain that him not being there.
Yeah.
And I think this will be different. I would imagine Black Panther is going to be down the road quite a bit, especially now. And I mean, obviously there's time for development and stuff like that right now with, they've already got Black Widow in the can, and a couple of the Disney Plus shows are going to probably finish up first. So it's going to be down the line, but when it does, I could, like I said, I still see it very much being Letitia in the center, and that kind of just being the thing. I don't think we're going to kind of, I think it would be an absolute disservice to put someone else and say, this is T'Challa now, and
Right.
and just move on.
It's like, no, man, turn the channel.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we got a little under 5 minutes left here. I guess before we go, can you give us some insight into your experience on set and what you've faced with these new COVID restrictions?
Absolutely. So again, so I was working on season 4 of Fargo, which we had about 2.5 weeks left before COVID really hit. And it was very much like a day-to-day thing that last week where, we weren't really sure what was going to happen. And it was kind of like everyone just kind of shut down in succession. And we were one of the last because we had so little left to go. And by one of the last, I mean, they started shutting stuff down on Monday. We made it to Friday. But we were off and confined, and we were in our own space. So we didn't really have any issues. But coming back now, we get tested 3 times a week, and there's proper zoning. So if you're someone who comes in close proximity with the cast, who obviously are people who have to not wear masks at times, you're tested more frequently. And, that there's a smaller pool of stuff like background extras where usually before, you can say, so-and-so is not showing up. We'll call someone else and they'll show up in an hour. Like, we can't do any of that now. There's like a testing pool. And it's been incredibly safe, and everyone's been very conscious because everyone's been out of work for 5.5 months. And the nice thing about the Chicago productions is that we don't take anything for granted because it ebbs and flows. There's years where there's 5 movies and they're all huge, and there's 6 TV shows and a couple pilots, and everyone's working. And there's other years where just nothing. And, we're in a weird period right now because Empire's over. Shameless is shooting its last season, but we don't know if they're going to come back to Chicago.
Right.
And if they do, that will only be like 2 weeks of work, because that's typically how that goes. And so it's kind of just the Dick Wolf shows, the Med, the Fire, PD, as mainstays at this point. So we don't know what's going to happen next, but we're doing absolutely everything we can. We have a whole new department, which is the health and safety department, that is just, they're passing out KN95 masks anytime anyone needs one. There's just hand sanitizer everywhere. We don't know no one breaks for lunch at the same time. Everyone's distanced away from each other when they're eating. And so we've really been able to create a very safe environment for the cast to feel comfortable. And they have. And I feel like I've seen that energy from all the cast up and down, where they just feel like they can kind of continue on. So it's been great. And we're going to be premiering on the 27th, which I'm really excited about. So people are actually going to finally get to see this.
Nice.
I'm really stoked. It's gonna be a good one.
Hey, just real quick, Matt. Your COVID-19 testing, right? Are they giving you the big Q-tip?
Right up the nose.
Right, right.
We're getting the swab, but it's the little more sensitive swab where it's 2 nostrils. It's not all the way up in the back, but it's frequent and consistent, and it's been very safe, which has been great. So.
That's good. That's good.
Matt Brassil, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. King's Legacy, COD Podcast, episode 12.
That's right. Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. We send the love to his family. We send the love to everybody who worked with him in cinema. I'm sure he made a lot of friends and he affected a lot of people. Yeah, we're moving forward. Wakanda forever.
Forever.
Forever. Peace.
God.